Tragedy continues to strike Canada's community of first responders. Earlier this week, yet another police officer was killed while responding to a call in Louiseville, Quebec. Quebec Provincial Police say Sergeant Maureen Breau was an officer for over 20 years. She's the 9th officer to be killed in the last 6 months. To unpack perhaps why we're seeing this uptick in violence and tragic losses, Tara Hodgkinson, criminology professor at Wilfrid Laurier University, joins us. Welcome to Global News, Professor.
Thanks for having me.
Canadians have buried 9 of our officers since September. Have we ever seen this many deaths in such a short period of time?
Not in recent years. So in the last 20 or so years, on average, we generally lose less than 1 officer a year. This year will be one of the worst counts for fatalities in history.
A dramatic increase in violence towards officers. Is there a reason?
I think it's a combination of a lot of reasons, and I don't think we have a clear picture on exactly what that is yet. A lot of them seem to be linked to mental health, and that indicates to us that there's a lot of support that's needed that isn't being provided for those individuals. We're seeing a lot of them linked to weapons and shockingly to guns, and we haven't seen that really in the past as well. So there's a number of factors that are going on, and I think more stress and more overall anxiety for Canadians across the board is creating sort of a catalyst in a way that we haven't seen in the past.
To piggyback off of that, since the pandemic, is there a correlation, do you think? Because again, this has happened in the last 6 months. Your take on that?
I think the pandemic isn't the cause. I think it essentially has exacerbated a problem that has been 30 to 40 years in the making. So I don't think this happened overnight. We've had chronic underfunding of healthcare and mental health care, of housing and affordable and social housing in this country. And that all really came to a head as a result of COVID and really expanded and intensified a lot of that experience for Canadians. We've seen that then coupled with inflation and additional stressors. And so while COVID feels like a very obvious explanation, I think this is a much longer history of underfunding and a lack of support for Canadians across the board.
So here we are today. Is there anything that can be done to ensure we don't keep seeing these tragedies happening month after month, sometimes multiple times in 1 month? Is there anything that can be done?
I think first off, we need to recognize how devastating this is for the policing community. And the fact that even prior to this, we had about 10% of staff across Canada already on medical and stress leave and other physical leaves in different services across the country. We then also have a recruitment crisis and a retention crisis, not only in policing, but in all frontline work. And so we need to be asking a bigger question of what are we expecting of our frontline officers and our frontline workers essentially to be doing, and how have we been downloading that responsibility onto them for the last several years? And what ways could we maybe be investing more meaningfully in prevention? And that really, again, speaks to the ways in which we need to be working towards better healthcare, better mental health care, especially around housing and affordable housing and social housing that we haven't invested in as a country for anywhere from 30 to 40 years. So I think prevention is our best approach here and our best method of attack, but it's still acknowledging and supporting our officers as they deal with this awful time.
Some great perspective there, looking at the bigger picture. We're almost out of time, but I have to ask, do you think this is going to become the future, seeing more fatalities each year? Your perspective on that for me?
I don't think so. I think that if we make the investments I've described, we won't. I think that we need to care for the individuals around those we've lost right now. And we need to acknowledge that this is probably going to get worse before it gets better. But I don't think that we'll continue to see this trend if we make the kinds of investments we really need to make sure that both our frontline officers and all of our frontline workers are protected.
I think these past few months have been a reminder of just how dangerous this job can be, how much sacrifice is made trying to protect our communities across the country. Professor, thanks for your time and your perspective today.
Thank you so much for having me.